Good morning, it's Mike from the Run Testers. It is just after 7 a.m. I am off to the Wizz Air Hackney Half Marathon. We'll be meeting Tom down there later. We are there with Hoka, who are one of the sponsors. And before we get hammered in the contents, we've been paid by Hoka. We have press entries courtesy of Hoka. We haven't been told to try or test anything out particularly, but myself and Tom will be using the Hoka Rocket X. We both are fans of the original. I have run my quickest 10k in them. I still use them for speed sessions, and I've been running in the Rocket X2, trying to get some mileage in. I recovered from injury, and it's a shoe built for racing, so I'm looking forward to see how it gets on from a race point of view. And Tom hasn't raced in it either, so I think he's looking forward to racing in it as well. In terms of other stuff, I've got the Beat Studio Buds Plus headphones, which are not technically running focused headphones, but they do have kind of the same IPX4 rated design as the AirPods Pro 2 and the Beats Fit Pro, which are more expensive and have the ear hook design. These don't have the ear hook design, but they do have an extra pair of ear tips to improve the fit in the previous version. There's improved noise cancelling, and battery life is going to look like it's going to be solid, so I'm hoping it will get through nicely. Whether the lack of air tips will affect in terms of the fit and the design and staying put during the race, that's what I'm looking forward to kind of finding out. Seeing the sound kind of impresses as well too, and potentially it's a cheaper alternative to the Beats Fit Pro and the AirPods Pro 2 as well. Other than that, I'm going to have the kind of latest Saysky vest on. I'm going to taste it. It's going to be hot today, I think. Warm anyway, a little bit hotter later on. And I mean, from the race point of view, I haven't run this distance in about 6 months because of injury. I haven't raced it. I haven't really got up to these kind of distances yet, so I'm looking forward to just getting through it really, and aiming for, if I can get around the 130 mark, I'll be very happy. Anywhere around there, not my quickest, but I'll be very happy in terms of my progress. Hopefully I can kick on and get back to do some marathon training for later in the year for a marathon as yet to be confirmed. But yeah, well, see you later. I'll make it to the station, and we'll catch up with Tom later to see how we all got on with the Rocket X2 and the other kit we're testing. See ya.
Okay, so Hackney Half 2023 done. There is the medal. Now, obviously, I'm not in Hackney anymore. I wanted to try and make a kind of relatively swift exit and get my recovery started. Now, I haven't run that distance, or half marathon distance, in over 6 months. I haven't raced in over 6 months. So, because of the issues I've had in the last few months with injury, I really wanted to get back and get my recovery up and running. Now I'm feeling a little bit better, I'm a little bit more fresher. I can talk a little bit about the kit that I tested and also get a little bit into the race as well. On that front, as you can probably tell, Tom is not here. Tom unfortunately couldn't do the race today, so he was unwell, so his thoughts on the Rocket X2 won't be here, but mine will be. And it's coming from a kind of self-confessed Hoka Rocket X fan. I've got 2 pairs of the original now. I still use them. I think I've grabbed Tom's kind of pair basically so I could have a spare pair. And I really like that shoe, and I still think it's still an affordable, good shoe, kind of quick shoe to look at that I think people will still like over a kind of relatively shorter distance. I think 5, 10, 15k is a very good shoe for that. But obviously the Rocket X2 is an entirely different proposition. Now I've managed to amass you know, with my kind of recovery, getting up to kind of 40k in these shoe now, and then obviously I've run the half in it now as well. And that's come from some shorter, sharper stuff, some indoor, outdoor, track stuff, a couple of longish runs as well in it too. And I think ultimately, I think the first thing to me that kind of springs to mind is that it just feels like a nicer shoe to run a bit longer. I think with the Hoka Rocket X, when I did try to run a little bit longer, I felt that maybe a firmness of the midsole, and actually I actually don't mind. I think when you're running a little bit quicker, it feels kind of very responsive. I didn't feel like a shoe that was very accommodating for kind of running a little bit longer. Maybe if you need to ease off or need to kind of settle into a slightly kind of not slower pace, but just kind of maintaining something a bit more consistently over a longer distance. I think with the original Rocket X, I found it very difficult to do that. Whereas I think with the Rocket X2, it definitely feels a lot nicer. I still think you get a nice kind of, you know, propulsive kind of feel in this shoe. You've got that kind of Peba base midsole, which, you know, gives you something a little bit softer, a little bit more forgiving. I think it feels like it's on a kind of wider base as well to kind of, you know, absorb a little bit better and just feel like a little bit more of a cushion ride, but also still giving you something that really gets you up on your toes as well. And that's kind of what I felt in that run. And I don't think it's just the midsole that works really well here. Obviously the upper, I feel like Hoka's done a lot of work with the upper here, and I think a really important I thought was really interesting was that in the podcast that Tom did with Ed Budd, he talked about how the upper is very well connected with the midsole and the rest of the shoe, and I think that really came across for me in terms of racing with it today, in the sense that it just feels an all-in-one shoe. You know, it feels part. You know, it doesn't feel like components. It feels like it's all connected. And you know, when I was running, I ran 143, I think 142, 143. I was trying to kind of keep to kind of below 8-minute miles, which is basically where I'm at in terms of my fitness. And then kind of when I could go a little bit harder, when I could get, you know, kind of the kind of slightly quicker 15, 20 minute mile kind of pace, it felt really good to run in. I felt very effortlessly to kind of run a little bit quicker in this shoe. I didn't really have any major issues. I think from a kind of gripping point of view, that, you know, there's a lot of twists and turns on that course, and I felt it handled that kind of cornering, you know, pretty well as well from an outsole point of view. With that half marathon in the bag now, I've kind of creeped over 50k in this shoe now, and as you can probably see, or hopefully see, is that I am starting to see some wear, particularly at the back of the shoe, and even kind of riding up to the side of the shoes as well. So, you know, Hoka says it's designed for racing. I like a lot of these top tier racing shoes. The outsole durability isn't fantastic. I would say that's applicable to the Rocket X2 based on what I'm seeing so far. I'm not sure it's going to be as versatile. It's kind of maybe New Balance is kind of top tier racing shoe, which I think you can use for kind of a lot of daily training runs and also racing, whereas I think, you know, I'm seeing quite noticeable wear here on the Rocket X2. You know, the Rocket X outsole wasn't fantastic, I don't think, as well in terms of a durability point of view. And it feels like the Rocket X2 and the changes that they've made here, it feels like it's going to be something similar. Maybe, again, you know, it's going to be one you're really going to want to save for when you're running at your quickest, running kind of racing as well. So yeah, I definitely think there's some major pluses with the Rocket X2, particularly I think for choosing it for something like the half marathon and potentially maybe using it for a marathon. I think about the other shoes that I've used or raced with at half marathon distance, and that's mainly been for me the Saucony Dolphin Pro 3. And the Asics Metaspeed Sky Plus as well, the original Metaspeed Sky. And I think for me, how this compares to those shoes at that distance, I would say I feel, I don't know, maybe I think I prefer something in the midsole that you're getting from the Saucony and Asics, from the sense I kind of think it's a little bit bouncier personally. I think you're still getting something that I don't think feels as propulsive as those shoes, as some of them, maybe the other midsoles as well. I definitely do think, you know, so I would like to be fully fit running in this, because when I was running in the Dolphin Pro 3 and the Metaspeed Sky, I was kind of fully fit and going at my kind of hardest kind of, you know, quicker pace. So I think, you know, if I had to choose between those shoes and the shoes that I have used half marathon distance, then I think it would be closer. It'd be closer than it would be with the original Rocket X. With the Rocket X2 compared to those other shoes that I probably would favour now that I've used kind of more recently. But I do think this is a massive improvement on the Rocket X in terms of being a better shoe for going the distance, and having that Peeba base midsole I think it really kind of is really what changes it here. But I really like the upper as well. I think the one thing I would mention about the upper, it's tough to get in. I would definitely wear your thinnest socks in these. I mean, I generally would do for racing anyway, but I did have to play around with the socks during my kind of training runs to make sure I got something that kind of really made the most of this kind of really thin upper as well. But overall, I kind of, when I was struggling, I've kind of enjoyed running in this shoe in that race. I do think potentially it is one I would look to running a half marathon again when I'd be fully fit as well. Would I pick it over the other options that I've used previously, more recently, when I've kind of been running at my quickest? Not 100% kind of convinced on that front yet, but I definitely do think this is a step in the right direction for Hoka in terms of their shoes, in terms of what they're doing in the midsole, and still retaining all the things that I think you got from the Rocket X as well, in terms of being something you'd want to run kind of quick in, and feeling like it's a nice shoe to run quick into. Okay, to other stuff that I was testing. I think the other big thing really for me was the Beats Studio Buds Plus. So I haven't used the original Beats Studio, but I have used the kind of Beats Power Beats. I've used more recently the Beats Fit Pro. These sit below those headphones, so these are actually a cheaper alternative. Now, a bit like the Apple AirPods Pro, they're not specifically designed for runners, but ultimately it gives you a kind of a level of design that makes them suitable to, for everyday kind of use, and also, with an IPX4 rated design with their earbuds, not their case, there's some protection or similar protection in terms of kind of moisture and kind of sweat and things like that. So first thing I wanted to see for me is whether they were going to stay put. From that point of view, they did. But it almost feels like a lot of the headphones that I've tested, or earbuds that I've tested, where you don't have those kind of more reassuring wingtips or kind of ear hooks, that you kind of think about it a little bit more. And I do think you maybe need to play around with the air tips that are included in the box to make sure you can improve that fit. Generally, it was fine for me. There's a couple of times where maybe they kind of move slightly. They didn't ever felt like they were falling out, but again, if you have to think about it a little bit, probably it's not the best thing. Now, from a sound performance point of view, I was using them in kind of the transparency mode as opposed to the active noise cancellation mode, which I've kind of been using day to day, and generally my other runs it's not the best in class ultimately, but I wanted the transparency mode to see how, I wanted to hear the kind of crowd, and also have a bit of my music as well. From that point of view, the sound profile was very, very good. It's very bright, it's kind of powerful without being too bass heavy. There's some good detail. It's kind of quite clear. The audio is very clear. And for me, the sound profile and sound performance in general was very good on that race. It never felt like it was totally drowned out, even though I had in the kind of transparency mode. From a connectivity point of view, so I had it paired to my iPhone 14, which I ran with, and I think there was probably one point where the connection kind of was a slight glitch and maybe dropped a little bit for kind of a couple of seconds. I think it was kind of right after I kind of poured maybe a cup of water over my head, so I don't know if those two things are connected, but after that it was absolutely fine from a kind of connectivity point of view. The other thing I really wanted to look at was battery life, and from that point of view I saw the battery drop by 40%. I had it relatively loud, not fully that kind of top volume, but that's not necessarily too bad, kind of what I would expect to see in terms of that battery drop off. It's going to obviously be a lot worse, so you have active noise cancellation in play, and before I do my full review I want to see a little bit better how the noise cancelling kind of impacts on that battery life. So yeah, it made it through that kind of half marathon, but again, as I said, I think sound quality felt good. I think the fit felt okay, but I was almost maybe hoping or wanting those kind of more reassuring kind of ear hooks or wingtips to kind of make sure that fit was good. But they stayed put, sound was good, battery life lasted as well. So far so good. They lasted, they survived the kind of half marathon test. Before I do my full review, I want to do a few more runs before kind of giving my verdict on that. Other things really I had that I was testing or trying out, I had the latest Saysky singlet. I've run in Saysky singlets before. I've bought quite a few. I mean, when I'm not running in the Run Testers Saw Vest, I fancied a change today. I quite like the mint kind of new colourway, so I gave that a try. Absolutely fine. In terms of the fit, in terms of kind of nothing in terms of chafing. It felt comfortable. It looks good. It's still a vest or top, one of the brands that I would still race or choose to race in if I wasn't using our kind of own run testers one. So from that point of view, it passed the kind of race test for me as well. I will be using it again, particularly if it's a little bit hotter, kind of going to sweat a little bit more. So that point of view, yeah, absolutely fine in terms of the testing. And yeah, those were kind of the main things I was testing at the Hackney Half Marathon. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the race itself. And this was the first time I have done the Hackney Half. And I think the first thing I say is it took me quite a while to get there. It's a little bit out of the way. It's not the easiest place to get to. I had to get a couple of trains, a bus. I had to walk a little bit of the journey as well. So I think one thing I would say is keep in mind how you're going to get there if you are going to do the Hackney Half, and really think about your travel arrangements. In terms of the setup at the event village was great. I mean, I think, there was lots to do. There was lots of stands, and people kind of hung around. A lot of people there just to kind of watch and view. And I think that was the thing that really stood out for me in terms of the race itself. Now, I don't think it's the most scenic race. There's not a massive amount to see around Hackney, compared to some other areas in London, I would say. The course itself, like a lot of London courses, a little bit kind of twisty and turny, so that's something to keep in mind. You are going to be, ultimately to get that kind of distance covered in that area, it had to be like that. But the main thing is it was so well supported, and that really surprised me. I think, having spoken to some of the race organisers, that is a race I think is probably one of the biggest in the kind of London-based races in terms of application and entrance, as particularly this year. So that's a massive thing, and it definitely was a younger crowd, and I think that's really important. You're seeing younger runners, a good mix in terms of the kind of diversity in terms of the age range. And it just felt like a nice event to be at. And I think, although I didn't absolutely love the route itself in terms of what you can see and kind of distract yourself, particularly when I need that distraction, I think it more than made up in terms of the support that you got around the course and pretty much all of the course and the route as well. The race itself, yeah, it was tough. It was hotter than I expected. I thought it was going to be hotter kind of more near the end of the race. It started hot at the beginning of the race. It was tough, but the kind of aid stations were well kind of situated and positioned and supported. So from that point of view, I kind of have no real complaints. So yeah, as I said, really well supported. Not particularly the most scenic route. Quite a lot of twists and turns generally because it's what you get in a London kind of race in general, but a nice, really kind of good event village setup. I think make sure that you set off early and you work out how you're going to get to Hackney Marshes, because it's not that straightforward. And yeah, I think if you're worried about going there and supporting and not expecting there to be a lot of people, there was a lot of people there, and I think it's only going to grow as an event. And again, it's a good mix of people and a good mix of runners, and I think that's really important, and that's the thing that I took away from that race. Apart from the fact that it was so well supported, and I was surprised by the amount of people that turned up and kind of went and shouted out everyone's name. Maybe they didn't even know, but that was, I think, a real positive from my experience of running the Hackney Half. Okay, so there you have it. That is my Hackney Half 2023 race test of the Hoka Rocket X2, the Beats Studio Buds Plus, and the Saysky singlet, which is now in the washing machine because it is very, very sweaty. Now, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Thanks so much to Hoka for the race entry. Thanks to the people who gave me some shout outs out on the course when I was really bloody struggling out there in those toasty conditions. As always, like and subscribe, hit that little bell to find out about latest videos, and yeah, we'll see you for the next Run Testers video.